I think I got an ad on my own video and I was watching, I was like, what is that sound? Yeah, so I played you my own ad on my own video. So meta. Anyway, hello everyone, I'm Jane, and today we are gonna paint the awesome Zen tree painting that you saw just a minute ago. I don't have it here with me, so I can't show you. Mr. Jane could probably bring me the canvas in a second when he gets a moment to. So yeah, if he'll bring me that real quick. He's like strapped down with earbuds and everything right now. So we tried really hard to get a microphone on him for today, but we had some technical difficulties because of course we wait until the last minute to try and test things because that's how we roll. So hopefully next week. But anyway, this week, this is basically what we're gonna be painting. I think maybe I need to wipe off the little lens on my computer camera. Okay, so I did forget to tell you in the materials list that I will be using unbleached titanium only on the background of this painting. So if you don't have unbleached titanium, I think you'll be okay. It will just be a little less of kind of a neutrally brown color in the background. You'll have it will just be a little bit brighter, not so warm. So if you're okay with that, then it's perfectly fine. Don't stress not having any. I do highly recommend getting some unbleached titanium though, because it's a really versatile and awesome color. So yeah, we've got quite a good crowd already today in chat, 232 people to start out. So can't complain about that. Guys, remember if you're watching live to put any questions that you have in all caps, and then Vince will get to them and field them to me and I will answer them for you. If you're not asking a question, please don't put it in caps because then he might get confused and like just read a random comment that you make, which could be interesting. So let's go ahead and get started. So we have a 12 by 16 inch canvas, like typical, it's what I usually use. And I did add a layer of gesso again to it today because I'm gonna be scrubbing just like we did last week. Now you don't have to add gesso, that's just my personal preference. So I have my colors laid out here. Oh, that's a little bright, isn't it? I think we're a little hot there. Whoa, that's worse. Much better. So I have Mars Black, Burnt Umber, and Unbleached Titanium White. And I'm gonna start with my number 12 cloud brush, and it is dry. Remember, whenever I'm doing scrubbing like this, I use this brush dry. And that's because it doesn't smear the paint around quite as much. So I'm generally gonna have it be kind of lighter up in this area and slowly get a little darker down to here. I'm not gonna go terribly dark with this. I just want a little bit of a gradient. So I'm gonna start by loading up with Unbleached. A pretty good amount of paint. And I'm gonna get just a little bit of Burnt Umber and just a little bit of Mars Black. Remember that Mars Black is a very, very strong color, and a tiny bit of it could really overtake everything. In fact, that might even overtake the unbleached that I put on my brush. I might have to get some more. I'm gonna use that 1/2 foot pressure. So remember, it's like if you're standing flat, but you're kind of rocked up onto your toes a little bit. And just kind of in a little bit of a circle. Just focusing on covering the white of the canvas. I am not making clouds today at all, so don't get nervous that it's got to look a particular way. If you're having, let me see if I can zoom in there a bit. I might have to completely readjust my camera here, so stand by for just a second. If you are having a little bit of a hard time getting into the texture of the canvas, particularly if you've gessoed it like I have, it will make it very dry and the paint doesn't really smear quite as much. It more like sticks where you put it. And so you'll get a lot of that, ooh, see that canvas texture that's showing there? So if you get onto the tippy toe of your brush like that, like this, see how that digs down into that texture. Really easy. This is going to help you kind of blend See how it's not really getting into that texture? That's how you're going to get down into that texture, okay? So I won't leave you zoomed in quite like that so you get super dizzy while we're just starting. I don't want you dizzy just yet. We'll wait until later on. Okay, a little more unbleached. Maybe I'll pick up just a little bit more brown this time and about the same amount of black. Every time I go back for more paint, it's going to be a little bit different. Mostly just that 1/2 foot pressure to spread it, and see, that helps me blend it into the previous section. Up on the tippy toe to dig into that canvas and maybe break up any spots where I feel like I had a line or just something weird going on. So Vince, give me a shout if we have any questions going on.
No questions yet.
No questions yet.
A lot of shout outs from different areas of the country and the world.
Oh yeah, lots of different country shout outs. Who do we have? Like, what different countries do we have represented today?
Alabama?
Alabama's not a country, Vince.
Oh yeah. I can say that because my mom's from there. Georgia, Arkansas, Colorado.
Lots of states in the U.S.
Yeah.
See, right there, guys, I only picked up unbleached titanium. I did not pick up any brown, any black, anything like that at all. I like to have it be quite different every single time I pick up my paint. I think I picked up more brown that time, maybe even just a little bit more black. Once you apply it to your canvas, if you look at it and you're like, well, that just looks exactly the same as what's next to it, just come back and get something a little different and put it in there. So I just picked up a little more brown, a little more black. There we go. Much better. Super light pressure. See, I'm not putting any pressure on my brush. Just enough to kind of scratch those two colors together. Heavy pressure there to blend it and lay it down. Super light pressure there just to fuzz those two colors together. Now, if you don't, because every time I use my cloud brush, people ask, what can I use if I don't have your cloud brush? Well, first of all, you can get them on my website. And that's just paintingwithjane.com. Or if you can't get them for some reason, or you just don't want to, you can just use whatever you have available that you're comfortable scrubbing with. Keeping in mind that unless a brush is specifically made for scrubbing, scrubbing may eventually ruin it. My brush is made specifically for scrubbing. So even after a year of some pretty hardcore scrubbing with this brush, it's looking practically brand new, except for, you know, paint stains, which are gonna happen. Ooh, see how dark that area is? Let's bring you down a bit. Nope, tried to go up again.
Question.
We have a question.
From Jeep Girl.
Jeep Girl.
Do you paint the sides of your canvas when not teaching?
Do I paint the sides of my canvas when not teaching? No. Painting the sides of the canvas is way too much work for me, and I honestly don't care what the sides of the canvas look like. If I'm really concerned about it, or if I'm selling it and I think the person who's buying it is concerned about it, I'll paint them black. But I don't care what the sides look like. But, you know, and it's a personal thing. I don't think that anyone can tell you this is what you should do with the sides of your canvas. You should do with the sides of your canvas whatever you want to do with them. I just picked up a little point of unbleached because right here, I just don't like the disconnect between this dark, dark color and that light, light color. So I'm just gonna very lightly nudge over the top of it to smooth those together. Very gently. There we go. All right, we have another question.
Question from Christina about the unbleached.
From Christina about unbleached titanium.
Where can you get it? I use golden. They don't have it. Or can I make a color close to it?
You know, she's saying she uses golden and they don't have it. I don't know what golden has or doesn't that would be similar. I never used golden. This is just Liquitex, so if they sell Liquitex where you buy your golden, they should have it. It's just really an off-white, you know, a little bit of extra brown is going to kind of make it off-white. That's really all it is. It's just an easier way to have off-white without having to spend so much time, you know, mixing it and everything. Sometimes it's nice to have off-white because, you know, sometimes you want something to be lighter but not necessarily brighter. Like titanium white really makes things bright. And, you know, the unbleached is going to help things stay a little bit warmer, where titanium white tends to kind of cool things down a little bit. So it just depends on what you like and what you can get, what you prefer. It's not required. You don't absolutely have to have unbleached, but I think that if you get some unbleached, I think you'll like it. And I think you'll use it a lot. Another question?
Diane?
From Diane.
Do you ever have problems with bristles coming off your brush onto your painting?
Do I ever have problems with bristles coming off of this brush onto my painting? No. Now, I know that sometimes large fat brushes, and this one is no, what am I saying? No exception to the rule. Large fat brushes, occasionally when they're brand new, have never been used, they may lose 1 or 2 bristles right at the start. And that's because there's so many bristles in there when it's being made. A bristle or 2 just may not have been long enough to get all the way down into the glue that's down in the ferrule. And so, you know, straight out of the package, you may lose a couple of bristles out of this brush, but after that, no, I haven't lost a single bristle out of it since the first time I used it, if I even lost any then. All right, bottom half of the canvas. I might have to get some more unbleached. So notice I'm just generally going a little bit lighter as we go down. And I'm doing that by picking up a little less unbleached and a little more of my other colors. I'm not trying to mix them on my brush. See, they're all still kind of marbly in there. Always start below the previous color. Spread that paint nice and thin, and then focus on blending it. So we went over this quite in depth last week. So I'm gonna try not to spend a whole ton of time on it this week. If you didn't see last week's video, I will put it up in the little information card. It's not up there right now, but I will put it on there for the replay. This is when time-lapse would come in really handy.
No,
Except we have another question.
Well, Tammy has asked, how do you know when to gesso before painting?
So we talked about that really in depth last week too. Tammy asked, how do you know when to gesso? What it boils down to is a personal choice. That's it. There's no, you absolutely have to gesso if this. It's a personal choice. I like to gesso when I scrub. You may not, and that's perfectly okay. Again, I actually show you the difference between a gessoed and an ungessoed canvas in last week's video. So make sure that you check that out because we went over quite a bit of good gesso information. I'm gonna get a little more unbleached. I get so many questions about gesso. I don't know why that's like the main thing it seems like that people are confused about is gesso, and I think that we make gesso into a bigger issue than it really is. I don't think that gesso is such a big deal. Use it if you want to, don't if you don't. That's really what it boils down to. A little more unbleached, more brown, just a little bit of black. Sorry, Vince, what?
Dawn asked, do you sand it afterwards?
Dawn asked if I sand my gesso. No, that's too much work. I'm lazy. I mean busy. I'm busy. Busy. I always get those two words confused.
And a quick question about your method that you're doing right now.
Okay.
Monica asks, do you rinse your brush as you're painting the background?
Monica asked if I rinse my brush as I'm painting the background. No, because A, I want to use this brush dry. I don't want it to be wet at all. B, I like the color traveling down. So my brush will just keep doing what it's doing until I'm done, and then I'll wash it and set it aside. See, all I picked up there, even though I'm working in the area that I want darker, I just picked up a little bit of unbleached there because I still like the variation. I like those little bits of variation. What? Okay, you can speak up, Vince.
Okay, Francis asked, do you sell all your brushes in a set, or do you have to buy them each individually or separately?
So Francis asked if my brushes all come in a set or if you have to buy them individually. There's both. You can get them both. So I believe in the information iCard right now up at the top, where is it? Up here? Yeah, right there. There's a link to my brushes there. So you can go there and see. The sets will be changing a little bit soon. Not the prices. I'm not adjusting any prices, but the sets will probably be changing a little bit soon because I have a few new brushes that should be coming in soon. And I want to put them into some sets. So, I mean, the prices may change just because there's different brushes in them, but the price per brush, and it's not changing. But yeah, go check that out. And while we're at it, make sure that you sign up for my mailing list, guys, on my website. Because as soon as my new brushes are in, I will send out a note about that through my mailing list. But also, the day before I go live, I send out a message to tell you that I'll be going live and when. So make sure that you do that. That's just on my website. There's a few different pages on my website. I think there's a link in the video description below that goes directly to it.
Tell him it's paintingwithjane.com.
Paintingwithjane.com. He's directing me, and he's got to stop that. Because
what brand acrylic is he using?
I only use Liquitex.
Question from Shirley. Question from Shirley. On this particular background, is there another way to do it without scrubbing?
So Shirley wants to know if you can do this background without scrubbing, and the answer is yes. So years ago, guys, I can't believe I've been making videos long enough to say that. Years ago, I did a video called Smoky Background 2 Different Ways, and this is one of them, scrubbing. And then the other way I showed you was to do it with like a 1-inch flat brush. So yeah, you can check that out, and that will show you basically, I mean, it's going to look a little bit different because we're using a different brush, a different technique, but basically it's the same thing. Yeah. All right, last corner. I think I'm going to go fairly dry. It really doesn't matter what color I go with this last corner because most of this is going to be covered up. So I'm just going to fill it in for now.
Jules has a question.
Jules has a question.
Do you sand your canvases before painting to extend the life of your canvas?
Nope, like I said, I never sand. It's too much work. That's just way too much work for me, guys.
Beauty Guru says, can I use heavy body paint for this painting?
I'm using heavy body paint. You can use heavy body, you can use liquid, you can use basics, whatever you like.
Do you gesso this?
Yes.
How many layers of gesso?
I only put 1 layer of gesso. I really don't understand why gesso is, it almost seems like people think that gesso is like a magical thing that we must struggle to understand. All gesso does is change the texture of your canvas. That's all it does. It's one layer of gesso, the canvas texture is changed. That's all I'm going for. All right, so we are done with the background. I didn't worry about taking it all the way to the very bottom because I'm going to paint over all of that. So, clean off my brush because remember, everybody in chat, what's the answer? How long should a brush sit in your water jar? As long as it takes to clean it, and that's it. Let me grab a paper towel real quick. I think I'm going to mute you for a second, and I'm going to get out my blow dryer and just dry this real quick because I don't want to pick up any of these colors into the next part. So give me just a second here, and then we will get started on the rest of it. And here I was talking to you, and you were muted. I still had you muted. Okay, let's turn you back so that you can see everything, and we are going to get started on the, let's see, what part are we going to do next? I think we're going to do the rocks around, yeah, we're going to do the black. Ooh, see, it almost looks like a stormy, cloudy sky, doesn't it? That looks really cool. So you don't notice things like that sometimes until you step away from it. I'm just right here looking at it. I'm like, yep, that looks like what I expected. And I stand back and I'm like, oh, it actually kind of looks like a cloud tunnel type sky. So that's kind of cool. All right, I'm going to go to, well, let's see. I told you guys you would need some chalk. I got these. They're pretty cool so far. These are the general like chalk pencils. So they're pencils, but they're also like pastels. So I like that because they're really small, like a pencil, but they come onto the canvas really easily like chalk. So I like these pretty good so far. And I'm going to use white because I think you'll be able to see that in most of this background. And they seem to come off really easily, so I haven't had too much of a problem with that yet. So I'm just going to generally sketch on where I think I want my rocks to be. Hopefully you can see that. I know that's hard to see up here. It doesn't really matter. Just kind of sketch out where you feel like you want your rocks to be. Even up here where it's going to be really thin, I'm still going to have a sliver of it because I don't want it to all of a sudden disappear and then reappear over here. I feel like that would be a little awkward. So just kind of giving myself an idea of where these rocks are going. Kind of looking at my last one. And I'll stop it right about there. And the pencils, the brand is General. Just right about like that. A little bit of a rock ledge there. Now, so we've talked about the rule of thirds a little bit in the past. And so I want you to kind of keep that in mind with today's painting because we are kind of following the rule of thirds. So if you notice like our little ledge here, it's about in the 1/3 mark. So if we draw a line down the canvas this way and down the canvas this way, so we have 3 equal sections, and then we do the same thing this way, this is going to be roughly where a line this way and a line this way meet. So that's an interesting 1/3 point. Same thing with the bulk of our flowers up here is kind of in that 1/3 section. So keep that in mind while you're drawing this out because you don't want to put your ledge clear up here in the middle. I feel like that would look really awkward. It wouldn't be quite so interesting. So I'm going to bring it down here and just bring it around. Can you see that? Yeah. I feel like that might be too far. I don't want to take it out past the halfway point. Back, just kind of like that. I know that looks super narrow, and so you might be really tempted to kind of make the shape like that, but I feel like it's going to look like it's tilted, like everything's falling off, so don't do that. Just make it nice and narrow, and then a little rocky, ledgy bit like that. And we'll have some ground kind of right about here. Nothing too specific. Maybe I'll have some more rocks right there. Okay, so that's generally what we're going to do. I'm going to worry about the tree later. We're not going to worry about that just yet. Question about the pencils.
Where can they get them? Is there a link on your site?
No, I don't have a link on my site to them. I just got them at Michael's. Yeah, you can probably get them anywhere that sells art supplies. So I'm going to use my 1/2 inch flat brush, and I just wet it in my jar, wiped it on the edge. All I'm going to do right now is start filling this in with black. So I'm going to load up with black. And I'm just going to use the edge of my brush to draw the lines. Remember, you don't ever draw lines with your brush flat like that, because as you push harder, the bristles are going to get wider. You're going to lose control of your line. So use the tip of your brush, and then you can fill it in the other way. See, just very kind of randomy. Don't try to draw anything real specific. Rocks tend to be a little on the random side.
Your scrub brush, do you have a scrub brush?
My cloud brush.
Francis asked which one is your scrub brush, but it goes by cloud brush, right?
Yes, the one that I scrub with is my cloud brush.
And that's what it's called on your website.
That's what it's called on my website. So just fill all this in with black. Don't worry about highlights just yet. Filling it in. So my easel is kind of wobbly. The carpet that I have in here, I think it has like a really dense pad under it. And so I have to keep my foot on the bottom of the easel. Otherwise it's all like wobbling back and forth. So if you see my easel wobbling, I apologize. I'm trying to keep my foot on it. I guess I should get myself like a sandbag or something. So is anybody live painting along today, or is everybody just watching? And I know last week there were quite a few people who painted along and said that they really enjoyed that. And do we know, Vince?
Say again?
Is there people painting along, or are they just watching?
I don't know.
Eileen's painting along. This part is kind of the boring part. Sorry, guys. It's just like filling in a section with black paint. All right, down the edge there. Let your brush kind of get out of control. Pay attention and make sure that you're not, you know, doing things that are too straight and solid. These are rocks, so we wouldn't have like, you know, just a solid straight line there. I mean, maybe you would, but chances are maybe not. If you find that you're making too many straight lines, like I feel like here I've got a straight line and a straight line, then I'm just going to come back and kind of pop that out a little bit. There. And now I've got a little bit more of a kind of a randomy, rocky look. And that one's going to have a bit of a ledge on it. Okay, now I'm not going to fill in the top area here, and it's not because the black will do anything or be hard to cover up later. It's because I want to try and be able to still tell what these 3 different sections are. So I'm not going to fill those all in. I know I do want to have some rocks that kind of come out onto it there. And I am going to fill in this part here because that is going to be rocks. Down here is also going to be grass, so I'm just going to leave that for now. All right. We're almost to the fun part, getting to add some color. So let's talk real quick. I said in the materials list that we wanted to use Cadmium Yellow Light. And I know I usually use Cadmium Yellow Medium. But the reason today I'm using Cadmium Yellow Light, so it really doesn't matter. If you don't have light, you can do other things, and I'll tell you some of the things you can do. But the reason I'm using Cadmium Yellow Light instead of Cadmium Yellow Medium is the cadmium colors, as they get deeper, they get redder. So the Cadmium Yellow Medium does not make a nice green when mixed with black like Cadmium Yellow Light does. So if you don't have Cadmium Yellow Light, you can use Cadmium Yellow Medium, but I would use ultramarine blue then instead of black for the green, because it'll be a little bit closer. Let's see. I know I'm going to have some rocks over here. I'm just going to start filling those in. What did you say, Vince? Nothing?
How often do you varnish your paintings?
How often do I varnish a painting?
And what brand of varnish do you use?
Whenever I sell it. I don't really worry about. I mean, I'll varnish a painting, but until I sell it, I don't.
No particular brand?
No particular brand. Whatever I feel like using at the moment, whatever I've got on hand. Okay, I know those are going to be rocks. I think I'm going to have some rocks over here too, but again, if I start laying in the black, it's just going to blend in with that and then I'll lose it. So we'll just wait a little bit on that. In the meantime, I'm going to get some Cadmium Yellow Light and put it out here next to my black. If you've never made green mixing black and yellow, oh, you're missing out. Black and yellow make the best green, but not if you're using Cadmium Yellow Medium or Deep. And it doesn't really make a very nice green at all. Okay, so I've got my black on here, and I'm going to pull just a little bit of yellow in. I just want to make a very dark green to start with. In fact, that almost just looks straight black to you guys. I think you'll be able to tell once I put it on the canvas. So I'm going to fill in this little area here, our ledge. Don't worry about making it overly solid. You know, it's the ground. It might have some little bits that are growing up, and anything you don't like later, you can turn it into a rock. See, you can tell, let me zoom you in a little bit. You can tell a little bit of difference now that that's green and not black. Whoops. Don't get sick, guys. I know I always say that. There we go. I'm going to make you seasick one day. When I get up to the bottom of where I want some rocks to be here, I'm just kind of overlapping it. None of that really matters right now. And I think that if you overlap it and then decide you just want it black right there, it's easier to cover later than if you make a hard line. I think if you make a very hard line, that's going to be really hard to cover up later. So even right here where I know that's going to be the ledge, I'm not making a super solid line. See how I'm almost sketching on it? That just gives me the ability to kind of change it later if I want to. Notice I didn't worry about where the water is going to go. I'm just going to paint that over top of it. Let's do the same thing down here. So I've got my black and my yellow. Can you see that? Yep, now you can tell it's green. And same thing. See, just kind of short brush strokes, getting a little bit of texture. So I just kind of poked into the water just a little bit. If you're getting a lot of texture like that, you just need a little extra water on your brush. See how much smoother that is now? And I did not like fully dunk my brush into my water. I just kind of touched the very end of the bristles to the surface of the water. That's it. And then just mix it in with what's on your brush. That's all you got to do. If you get too much water, it's going to start getting transparent and hard to control. So just a little bit. Again, I'm just going to dash that into the base of those rocks. See that? Nothing specific, nothing definite. How are we doing over there, Vince? How's everyone doing? Good.
358 watching.
358, oh my gosh. I just took my grass up there. Like I said, I'm going to have rocks, but I don't know where exactly yet, so we'll just do that. We'll come back to those rocks later. All right. Washing off my brush. And what do I want to do next? I think we need to highlight the rocks. Now, highlighting the rocks here, I know this is a part, because we've done it before, where sometimes people get frustrated and they feel like they have no idea what they're doing. But rocks are all different. I just put out some titanium white, just regular titanium white. Rocks are all different, so don't feel like you have no idea what you're doing, you know, in highlighting your rocks. Just do them however you need to. I'll show you what I'm going to do, but ultimately, if yours look different, that's okay. I am also going to show you a couple of things that I see sometimes with rocks that, in fact, let me click you over to here. So there, now I won't make you sick. I'll show you a couple of things that I see with rocks a lot of the times when people say that they've had a hard time with their rocks, and how to kind of avoid those kinds of issues. So let's see, let's go back over to here, and we'll start up in this corner because it's a nice large area. It'll give us a lot of opportunity for some technique demonstrations. So I am going to stick with my 1/2 inch flat. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a little smear of black on each side. See that? I'm not picking up a blob. There's no blob of black on my brush. See how flat it is? Now I'm going to come into my titanium white, and I just pulled out a little bit, but see, it's still not a blob. And it's really only on one side of my brush. I have titanium white there, and I don't really have any on that side. So that's kind of what you're looking for. Now, one of the things I see with rocks a lot of times is people will just kind of put a highlight on the edge, like right on the edge. And so then we almost have like stripes. So like I'll see this, you know, all the way across like that. And that's what all of the rocks will look like. But remember that rocks are three-dimensional objects. So wherever you put a highlight is going to say there's a rock face there. Maybe we've got a rock face right up in there. I know that doesn't look like a rock face right now. I'm just laying down some of this white paint almost randomly. I'm not worried about that ugly spot that I just did because I know that I can make changes. Now, I'm going to come back and just pick up some more black. There's almost no white on my brush. And super light pressure, I can kind of dash out whatever I don't like. I like to work in these kind of short, I have a lot of fixing to do here. I like to work in these kind of short, angular brush strokes. So like I'll take one kind of like that, and then maybe another one in a different direction. Just kind of like that. And remember, guys, just like with everything, if you don't like what you're doing, then let it dry and come back to it. That's another thing that happens a lot is people will come to me and they'll say, well, I hate my rocks, but, well, why did you stop? Don't stop if you hate your rocks. Let's see, this one, I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight right there. So that kind of tells me it's facing my light source, which I have said is over on this side. Your light source can be wherever you want, just be consistent throughout. Which means I probably want to cover up that because I don't feel like I'd have any bright light coming up from the bottom, just mostly from this direction that way. So I'm going to brighten this up just a little bit right there. And I lost my little highlighted one in there. We have some questions.
Monica asks, Are you overthinking when you start laying the rocks down, or are you being more random?
Am I overthinking when I start laying the rocks down?
Planning them out?
Oh, am I planning them out? No. No. I find that if I try to plan too much, then it doesn't quite turn out the way that I wanted it to. But when I just kind of go for it, then, you know, I feel a little bit more relaxed with it, and things tend to work out a little bit better. But also, I'm really just kind of giving the suggestion of rocks, you know, just don't overthink them. Don't overwork them. Again, I'm going to put a highlight kind of on that side because I feel like my light source is over here, so it might be shining up onto that. But I don't feel like it would be shining on this back side of it. But it can be shining wherever you want it to be. So I'm not going to have a lot of light on this side. Maybe just a couple little points.
And Mary White, who I thought was our sister, Mary White,
our good friend Mary White,
asked, did you say where you got the inspiration for this painting?
Oh, where did I get the inspiration for this painting? So all week last week, see, I'm just going to leave everything I have, and I might come back later and pop a few highlights, push a few things back into shadow, but right now, I feel like it's okay. It's not great, and we definitely need to brighten the highlights a bit on a lot of these rocks, particularly on this side, but I don't want to start muddying it up, so I'm just going to let it dry, and we'll come back to it in just a little bit. So the inspiration for this painting, sometimes it's really easy for me to kind of pinpoint where inspiration for a painting came from, and sometimes not so much. And I feel like this is one of those not so much ones because all week I was actually working on something else, something completely different. And I think it was a good idea. It was based on a photo, but it just wasn't, I thought it was looking terrible. Vince liked it because he likes everything that I paint, but I thought it looked horrible. So again, guys, do not pick up a blob of white. See how flat my brush is still? There's no blob, it's just a little smear. So I was really hating it, and I decided, okay, I need to move away from it and do something else. Let's see, take a little highlight up like that. And so I just started working on something else, and this started kind of coming out of it. And actually this started completely different too. Sometimes I do start with a very specific idea or image in mind, and you know, that's what ends up happening. Sometimes it's more of like a natural evolution, and I feel like that's what happened with this one. It really just kind of evolved. So see how I kind of pulled a piece that way, just a flat brush stroke, and then I left it alone. And then maybe I pulled another one that way to say this rock has two different faces that might be catching a little bit of highlight. But don't be afraid of these black areas. You know, you might think, well, my light source isn't coming around the rocks here, but maybe there's a whole nother set of rocks right here that is catching the light, and you are okay to make those determinations. So just put them wherever you feel like you need to. Maybe I'll put another little bit right there. And let's go back to just black and super light pressure. Just get rid of some of the hard lines. Rocks might have nothing but hard lines, but maybe they have a couple of spots where the shadow's fading a little bit. Or maybe they are kind of softer, more rounded rocks. But I think ultimately the inspiration for this one kind of came from, you know, I've been on a little bit of like a kind of a fantasy kick lately, like trees in very fantastic situations, a little surreal, you know, whatever. So I think that's kind of where this one ultimately came from, but the actual image, I feel like it was just part of a natural evolution. So what I'm going to do now is zoom you out all the way. That way you can kind of get a little bit of a better feel for how the rocks are looking as a whole. And I'm going to finish up. See, I don't think they're looking too bad. They're very, very simple. Very, very simple rocks. I'm going to do the exact same thing on these ones. But remember, just like up here, I'm going to have these ones be darker just because I feel like my light source is over here. If that's difficult for you, there's nothing wrong with saying my light source is coming from right here where I am and everything is evenly lit. You're perfectly fine to do that. I like a little bit more of a dynamic light source where it's brighter on one side and darker on the other, but that's a personal preference. It doesn't mean that if you don't like that or that you can't do that, that you're wrong. It doesn't mean that at all. All right, again, a very thin smear of paint, no globs. A very thin smear of white. And I'm going to really concentrate these highlights to what I kind of perceive to be the top surfaces of these rocks. Because I think that's really all that would be taking any kind of light. Not too bad. And this chalk, I always get asked, how do you get that chalk off? It's just chalk. It will just come off. I'll probably wait until the painting is completely dry because then I can take a damp brush and just wipe it away. But if you're going to do that, wait at least a full day. And it's probably better if you wait 2 or 3 days because even though this is dry to the touch, if I take a wet brush to this now, it will re-wet and it will come off of the canvas. Because acrylic paint needs a couple of days to cure and not just dry. Now let's add our rocks over here. In fact, I don't have rocks, so I need some just black. Oh no, I don't want to do that yet. Sorry guys, I get talking and, you know, thinking about what you're asking and everything, and then I get distracted. We need to add just a little bit of highlight to this rock piece here. So this is kind of, you know, it's kind of facing away from our light source a bit. So really, I'm just going to do a little up at the top. Definitely let it get darker as it moves farther down. So just a little here. Do this however you need. And remember, you can always stop and go, oh, that looks awful. Let it dry, paint it black, come back, do it again. Do not settle for highlights you hate. Don't do it. Right there, see, I'm just being random. I'm really just kind of introducing some of the white to areas to decide if I even want to highlight there. None of that's set in stone. I can come back with some more black and say, nope, that's too bright. Gone. No more. See? I like that at the top there, but not so much down here. Super light pressure. The pressure I'm putting on my brush here is about like that. See, almost none. Just dusting it. If you're using big globs of paint, if you're putting too much pressure on your brush, you're going to end up just kind of obliterating it. Because I know it looks like there's next to no paint on my brush because I'm not covering anything. But look, see how much paint is on my brush? So just be really careful. Pressure is everything. Everything, absolutely everything. How's it going over there, Vince? I hear you typing away furiously.
Just talking about writing.
Oh, talking about writing instead of painting. That's great.
And painting.
All right, I'm just going to pop a couple of spots at the top edges here with some white. Maybe I should wipe off my brush. Yeah, let's do that. Because I'm not getting any pure whites, so I'm just going to wipe that off. You could clean it if you want to, but I feel like the little hint of black still left in my brush helps. Just helps it avoid being overly white. So see, just little bits right there. Maybe a little bit right there. Just a little poke of it right there. And I feel like that's probably good. I think that's good. Maybe we'll come back to it later, maybe not. Let's do a tiny bit of water. Let's do our rocks right over here, and then I think we're almost done with the rocks. So I'm just gonna put a few in there. And since it's kind of blending with the background, you can't really tell any difference, and that's okay right now, because that gives us the ability to make changes and not be, you know, stuck with anything. Let me bend you down there just a little bit so that you can see when I do these.
We're getting requests to zoom in a bit, please.
I'm zooming in a bit right this very minute. The reason I was zoomed out, again, guys, the reason I was zoomed out is because sometimes we get overly focused on a spot and we don't look at the big picture. So sometimes after I do, you know, a section and I show you kind of what I'm doing, I zoom you out so that you can see overall how that looks. Because I could have you zoomed in the whole time I do these rocks, and the whole time you might be thinking, that looks horrible. That doesn't look like a rock at all. But then when I zoom you out, you might be like, oh, no, those actually do look like rocks. So that's why I do that. And I do that because I want you to get in the habit of looking at your painting from a distance too. Way too often we spend our entire time painting, you know, with our face down in the canvas like that. And you really don't get any kind of an idea of what your painting looks like when that's the only way you're looking at it. So again, some little flat streaks across the top edge. I feel like I might have a face that way that is taking a little bit of light. I'm just putting those wherever I feel like I want to see one. That's it. That's how that determination is being made. Almost being random with it. Maybe I'll pull just a little hint down like that. And back to pretty much just black, to just dust out a few of the lines that I didn't end up liking, or any white spots that I put on there that I ultimately decided I didn't like. Even add just another little bit of a rock somewhere. All right. One last thing, let's just kind of bump some of the highlights on the rocks. This is going to be a quick part, and then we're done with the rocks and we can move on. Are we getting lagging from this camera here? The camera on my canvas? Are we noticing any lagging there?
No.
No lagging? Okay, good. All right, so for this part, I'm going to go to my number 8 bright. So somebody asked what a number 8 bright is. This is my number 8 bright. So on the handle, it says 8 right there under our cute little monster. And right here at the end, it says 20. So somebody was asking about why my brushes all have that. All that means 8 is the size, 20 is the series. So all of my brights are series 20. It just helps kind of identify brushes. Like if you're looking at my number 0 round and my number 0 short liner, you might think they look very similar. They have different series numbers, so that kind of helps identify it. All right, again, I picked up a little smear of black, just like with the 1/2 inch. And I'm going to pick up just a little bit more white, still not globbed, because I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say we have a nice bright highlight there.
Can they do this with palette knife?
If you feel like you can do it with palette knife, go for it. You can do anything you want. So let me rant for just a minute. That's what I'm good for. I rant a lot. So I get questions constantly about, I mean, all kinds of things. Can I do is usually how it starts. You know, can I do it with this? Can I do it like this instead of like this? Can I add this? If you have a question for me that starts with can I, automatically I want you to assume that the answer is probably yes. You can do things however you want to do them. You know, even if I say you can't do this without matte medium, if you insist, yeah, do it. You might not get the same results, but you are the artist. You are free to do whatever you like. See how I'm just kind of punching some highlights here and there? And again, if I don't like something is too bright, I can do just like with the 1/2 inch, come back with a little black. And just kind of kick it back just a little bit. I feel like that one's a little aggressive. There we go. But yeah, if you do this with palette knife, anybody, I would love to see that. I go through phases where I love palette knife and I want to do everything palette knife. And then I go through phases where I can't imagine why I ever enjoyed painting with a palette knife. And I think, oh, I'll probably never paint with a palette knife again. So I don't know why I do that, but I'm kind of in a, palette knife right now. But I know that when I paint with palette knife, I enjoy it, so I'd like to get back into it, but as of the last couple of months, I just haven't felt very palette knifey.
Stephanie has a question about that.
Stephanie has a question? I'm going to go to here real quick so I don't make you sick. What is Stephanie's question?
Are the brights made with the same bristle as the flat brushes?
No.
You might want to, they didn't hear me.
Are the brights and the flat brushes made with the same bristles? All of the detail brushes have the softer bristles. The larger background flats and clouds have a stiffer bristle. And that's because they're made for, you know, different techniques. So the larger brushes need the stiffer bristles so that they can dig down into the texture of the canvas. All right, I know you guys want to be zoomed in right here, but I think you saw what I was doing, just adding little points of lighter color, exact same techniques as before, but I want you to see what it looks like at a distance as opposed to up close, because up close, as you saw when I was doing that, you can see every tiny brush stroke. You can see almost like the individual brush hairs. And those of you who overwork paint, I know that things like that make you want to go over it again. You know, you see the brush stroke, you see a line that's not blended perfectly, and you think, uh-oh, I have to fix that. And so you go over it again and again. And I think that a lot of it comes from, you know, not standing back to look at your painting. So I'm going to do this part exactly the same, but zoomed out just a little bit. Just get a tiny hint of black, blend out some of those. But really, guys, with this lighter color, put it down and leave it alone. The more you touch it to try and fix it, the worse it's going to get. Just leave it alone, you know? So, look, I'll show you. I mean, I kind of already did up at the top. I'm going to throw that down. Let's see, I'm going to make it really ugly. I'm going to throw that down. Oh, that is horrible. And if I touch it right now, it's going to get worse. So I'm just going to leave it.
Your mom has a question.
My mom has a question.
Do all of your brushes have teeth marks?
Do all of my brushes have teeth marks? No. Because, guys, remember, you can put your brush in your mouth. That's perfectly okay. I do, and I would never tell you not to. However, do not bite down on it. None of my brushes have teeth marks. 0 of them. Because if you bite on it, you'll break that paint open. And the paint is there not only to look pretty, but the paint is there to protect the wood. So if that gets broken open, then moisture and everything can get up into it and, you know, damage the wood, and your brush isn't going to last for very long. So by all means, put your brush in your mouth. Do not bite down.
Annie Adams asks, Would zinc white be too transparent to make the rocks, or would that work?
Who asked that, Vince?
Anik Adams?
Anik?
Anik, A-N-I-K.
Anik asked if, like zinc white, transparent mixing white, if it would be too light to do the rocks. Absolutely, way too light. You want something that's opaque. That's really not going to do this. I'm just dusting a little bit of black over some parts just to knock back a few little sections. And then we'll go take care of that ugly bit at the bottom, the part that I intentionally made ugly, just for you guys who like to overwork paint. So no, the zinc white is more for mixing to make something lighter without changing the opacity of it. It's not gonna do the same thing highlight wise as titanium white. Okay, ask your question, Vince. You don't have to raise your hand.
The butcher's wife wants to know if she's painting a path with a drop-off, would she paint it the same way as your cliff?
She wants to know, okay, the butcher's wife, sorry, we really need to get Vince's mic set up, I know. The butcher's wife wants to know if she's painting a path with a drop-off, would she do it the same way as what I'm doing here? Was that it?
Yeah.
I don't really know. I can't think about two things at once. Well, I don't know exactly what you have in mind. I would have to see what you mean, because I don't really know what you mean. I'm sorry. I know that I'm not a very good artist to have no good answers for that. Sorry, Vince, what?
Eileen said we can hear you just fine.
Okay, you guys can hear Vince just fine?
Okay.
Okay. I'm just going to take a little bit of black, and I'm just going to dust it over this. Now, if this part were just so bad that no amount of dusting was going to fix it, then I would just cover it up completely. Bye-bye now. Little speck of white, and we'll just make it the way we wanted it in the first place. That's not too bad. I think that's good. All right, guys, what do we think about rocks? Are they horrible and scary? I know every single time we paint rocks, people get unhappy with me. I'm sorry. I thought about that while I was doing this. I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't do rocks, but it had to be rocks. I was like, what else is it going to be? Let's see. The next part I want to do is, oh, I think it's actually the tree. I think we're going to do the tree. So let me get my camera set up here.
Feedback on the rocks. Rocks rock.
The rocks rock. Thanks.
Rocks.
Thanks for the feedback, guys. Okay, let's do our tree. Now, our tree is going to be, like the trunk and everything is going to be very, very simple. It's going to be a very simple tree. I am going to use my number 8 bright still. I'm just going to stick with my number 8 bright. And I'm going to load up with black paint. Now, if you want to sketch it first, you can sketch it first with a pencil or with chalk or whatever you want to do. I find that when I try to sketch trees, they look horrible. So I don't sketch trees. They look like lollipops, or they look horrible. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I like to start with the center of the trunk. So rather than like drawing the sides of each side of the trunk first and trying to get the shape that I want, I'm just going to draw a line that kind of mimics the shape of the tree that I want. So I know that I want my tree to have kind of a pretty strong angle to it. So I'm going to do that. And about like that. Now I'm going to take a line on either side. Now I can do the line on either side and kind of start, giving it some life. Remember, you need a little bit of room here for a river or a stream, so don't take it out too far. And if you accidentally do, just paint more ledge, just add some more ledge there. I'm going to keep it fairly tucked away in this back corner. I think that's good. And then we can fill that in. It's a little bit of a creepy tree. He's not terribly creepy, but I'm just going to pull. It's not really a root. I know that's hard to see because it's so dark right here, but you'll be able to see. Just don't give anything real definite. Don't draw very specific roots. Don't make just a hard line at the bottom of your tree. Just kind of let it be weird for now, because we're going to add more layers to the grass as well as the tree, so it will work itself out. Let's do branches. I'm only going to do 2 branches. That's it. We'll come back later and add more. So I'll fill that in later. We'll come up from here, just the edge of my brush, and kind of sketch it out to there. Now I can come back from there, and now that I know where it is, you can use an angle brush for this if you're more comfortable with an angle brush or a round brush, whatever you like. As I come back, I'm slowly applying more pressure. See how my branch is slowly getting fatter? More pressure, heavy, heavy, heavy pressure. And see how I was kind of letting it jag just a little bit so I didn't get like a perfectly smooth branch. If you want a smooth branch, that's okay, but let me show you kind of up close what I was doing. So I was just using the edge of my brush, not the flat. I'm not using it flat. So it's just the edge, kind of pull it sideways like that, and to get it really wide, I just pushed harder. See, it's still just the edge of the brush. It's not the flat side. And that's how you get a fat branch. And if that's not fat enough, you can make it fatter later. Let's do the second branch real quick. We'll have this one kind of come here and out. I'm going to have it overlap the rocks even. Maybe even just go off the edge of the canvas a little bit. That's okay. Let's do the same thing. Kind of pull that back. Heavier pressure.
Gwen, what brush are you using?
Still using my number 8 bright. Let's add elbows. I love elbows. See that? Like a little elbow in the tree right there. I love elbows in my trees. Let's do another one. So I just kind of jogged it down out of the shape and then brought it back for just a little point. And I feel like it needs to be fatter right here. So we'll pull that out there. We should have another little elbow right there. Yeah, I like that. Okay, I know that looks really weird. It doesn't look really like a tree. But bear with me. It will be just fine. It will look just like a tree, I promise. Okay. We're going to give a poor little number 8 bright a rest because I've been pretty aggressive with him today. And we're going to go to the flat, stiff, natural bristle brush. Whatever you have. I use these pretty often. I haven't used it for a little while, but these are super cheap brushes, guys. So I've had requests to have some made so that I sell them, and I'm not going to do that because you can buy like a pack of these brushes at Michael's for like $9 and get like, I don't know, something crazy like 16 brushes or 12 brushes, whatever. A lot of brushes for just a couple of dollars. I would not be able to get them manufactured and sell them to you for that same price. They would end up being more expensive. And I don't feel right about that. So just go look for a value pack of super cheap brushes and you will find these. They're super helpful brushes. I like them a lot. Even though they're not pretty, you will probably get bristles stuck to your paint. But yeah, they're good brushes to have around. I'm going to zoom you in just a bit for this part. Just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to take this brush and I'm just going to lightly dunk it into my water. I don't want it to be soaking wet. It does hold a lot of water because it's a natural bristle. I'm just going to daub it on a paper towel, just so it's not terribly wet. And let's go into some black. I'm going to pull some black paint out, and then see how sharp that is. I don't want it sharp like that. I'm going to kind of stab it. And now it's all puffed out, and that's what I want. I want the end to be puffed out. Now, when you are doing your brush, or you're doing the tree, kind of pay attention to how you want it shaped. So don't just make a big lollipop on top. Be pretty, kind of plan it out. So if you notice here, I've almost got like a shape. This is like a single shape here. Notice everything's kind of flat on the bottom and a little domed on the top. Same thing over here. I've got another one. And then I've got another one. And so the whole thing is kind of a series of these types of shapes. And notice I've also got empty space. There's a lot of empty space in here. Don't be afraid of empty space. It keeps things looking really, really interesting. So, let me put my foot on my easel so that we don't get dizzy. And don't overwork your paint. I'm going to start with a very light touch like that. Just a very light touch. So my bristles are not bending. Kind of pull that out there. And now I can come up, kind of start to give it that dome shape a little bit. Flip my brush over because I was running out of paint. And that's about good. And I know without all the branches, you might be thinking, how do I know where to put everything? You put it wherever you want to, and then you take branches to it.
Is that black?
This is just black. I'm going to do another one of those shapes, and I know there's no branch attaching to it, and that's okay. Oops, sorry guys, I didn't stab my brush enough there. This brush is wanting to stick together today. There we go, that's a little better. There we go. So see, now I kind of have two of those shapes. Yeah, sorry guys, still just black. For now, we will purple it in just a minute. Let's do this one over here because then that will give us a good idea of where we want to do some more. So we'll just kind of keep this on the branch for now. There we go. And we can put another one. I'm just looking at my last painting. This comes down kind of far. Maybe I'll just take that as a cue and put another one on there. So I'm kind of picturing like a little bit of a, not really a bonsai tree. I don't know, some kind of a, like an Asian type tree. Let's get another one kind of going on up here. Remember to leave some empty space because I think being able to see the branches is really exciting. I like to be able to see the branches from different parts of the tree. Oh, you can't see that all. Sorry, guys. Much better. In fact, let's take it up. So, hiring somebody who will come operate my camera for me every single week doesn't pay much, but I will be forever grateful for you. All right, black. Stab the brush, get it nice and puffed out. And let's do kind of one more right up in here. Still not a ton of pressure. If you put too much pressure, then it's going to end up just being kind of a big blob. And that, I mean, you can cover it up to an extent later when we start doing the purple, but ultimately you'll still be able to see it. And then I think you'll be in the habit of blobbing, and you might do it with the purple too. So just a light touch. Don't get impatient. If your paint starts to wear off, rather than putting heavier pressure on your brush, just get more paint. Okay, I think that's good. I know that looks really horrible. You guys are like, that doesn't look like a nice, pretty tree at all. And you're right, it doesn't. But it's okay, it will. All right, clean that brush off. Let's zoom you out. And we're gonna do some little branches. I can't believe I thought that this was gonna be a really long painting. I thought, oh, maybe I don't wanna do this one live because it'll be really, really long, but we're really through the hardest parts, I think. The rest of it is gonna be fairly quick. Excuse me. All right, I'm gonna go to this is my number 3 round brush. One of my favorite brushes right now. I go through phases, you know, where one brush is my favorite and then another brush is. And right now my number 3 round is my favorite. I actually need some more black paint. Still using black. We're gonna go through a lot of black paint in this painting. All right. So I'm going to get some black on my number 3, keep it rolled. Where are we? There we are. See how I'm kind of rolling it back and forth? That's going to help maintain a nice point so that it doesn't get flared out or flat. And now we can start drawing branches. So if you're looking at this and you're thinking, I don't think that this little tiny branch could hold up this big, huge clump of growth right there, then come back from here and drag another little branch up. Do as many as you like. Be very strategic with where you place them, which is exactly why I only did the 2 main branches in the first place, so that I could come back and make it look like the branches are actually holding up these pieces of the tree, and not like these pieces of the tree are just plopped down on top of these branches. So I'm just going to kind of add these in wherever I feel like they need to be. And let your branches cross over each other. Sometimes that's going to happen. Let's take another one here, a little bit of a heavier pressure, and let it hold up this bit. Again, just a little bit of water if you start getting those breaks. And because I used gesso, I am going to end up getting more breaks in my paint like that than if I hadn't used gesso. So it's just one of the things that you need to know if you're going to use gesso is it's great when you're doing like scrubbing or background work, filling in large areas, but sometimes when you go to do detail work, it can make things a little more difficult. I'm even going to take just a little bit of a branch right here, just kind of up and out of there. It doesn't have to come from anywhere in particular or, you know, go anywhere in particular. How's it going over there, Vince? Everybody's so quiet now.
Got some questions.
All right, let's have some questions.
Any word on new paintbrushes?
No, guys. If I ever have word on paintbrushes, you guys will have it. The only time I know anything about new paintbrushes is the day they show up on my doorstep. And the day they show up on my doorstep, you will know all about it. So until that day happens, I know just as much as you do.
We have a request from Hope to paint some more animal paintings or castle ruin type things.
We can probably do some castle ruins. Let's take a branch from over here. I don't do a lot of animals, guys. I do them sometimes when you ask for them a lot and I feel like I should, you know, but ultimately I don't feel like I do animals real well, and I don't know, I don't typically enjoy doing animals. Sometimes, you know, like I really like painting birds. So we might be able to do some birds sometime, but other than that, animals haven't been my bag. That's not to say we'll never do animals again, but, you know, probably not next week or anything. See, just little bits of branches wherever. I kind of like how I've got everything almost feeling like it's moving off in this direction. That feels really cool to me, you know, to not have everything just kind of spread out randomly. Let's get just a few in this guy. Woo, sorry. And then we will go up to the higher branches, and you're probably wondering how we're going to connect those. But it will be easier than you think. And that might be all we need on this little one here. We'll just pull one, and we'll probably end up losing that one, and that's okay. Let me zoom you out just a little bit so you can see all of this. And we will take a branch up. So let's actually take it from this one. So I'm going to whiten this guy. See how I made that one fatter just by putting a little extra pressure? We'll kind of come up here, get it kind of zigzaggy, messy, wild. Remember that just a little extra water is going to help get that paint to spread a little bit smoother.
Kathy says we need a rant.
Kathy says we need a rant. Kathy lives for the rants. I've ranted a couple of times. I'm sure there's more. Give me something good to rant about, Kathy. Let's see. Let's pull just a little piece out there. Make this tree do whatever you want it to do. Make it completely wild, and you know, it doesn't have to look like a real tree. Let's not worry about being overly realistic. You know, that's another thing that I hear is, oh, it doesn't look real. Why does it have to look real? It's art. Now, if it were a photograph, if you took a picture and your tree didn't look real, that might be concerning. But this is a painting. It can be as real or as fantastic as you want it to be. And I kind of like things to be on the fantastic side. I'm just pulling the little bits of branches to whatever I feel like needs a little bit of support. Whatever I think looks like it couldn't possibly be held up by anything else around it. Zoom me out and kind of look at that whole thing. Is that looking a little bit better? A little bit more like a tree than when we first started. I just wanted to bulk that part out a little bit, so I kind of went outside of the shape. We'll make sure that funky elbow stays there. There. Much better. I like that much better. Let's do some highlights on our tree. Now, highlights on our tree, guys, that's going to be the exact same as highlights on the rocks. I don't mean that we're going to do them the exact same way. I mean, you have to have the same attitude about them. You know, just decide where they're going to go and put them there. And if you don't like what you did, then don't settle for it. Let it dry and then paint it black and start over. And that's all there is to it. You are the boss of the highlights. The highlights are not the boss of you, no matter what they say. All right, so I still am using my 3 round, just loading up with some black. And I'm going to come into the white. I'm just going to kind of nudge into that white. I just kind of poked into the little blob of white. Decide where you want to highlight and just kind of start. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be beautiful. I just kind of twirled my brush, just kind of rolled it like that as I went down. And obviously that is way too white, and it's way too just placed in that one area. So I just picked up a little bit more black. And I can kind of nudge that out. Whatever is too white, whatever's got too hard of a line or anything. When was the last time we did highlights like this on a tree? The last one I can think of was Golden Hour. But did we do? I feel like we had to have highlighted a tree more recently than that. Somebody help me out. Sometimes I think it helps to watch, you know, a couple of different examples, because I might say something in one video that I don't say in the other. Or
Mystical Tree on the Moon?
Yeah, the Mystical Tree on the Moon. I guess, yeah, we did it pretty close. Actually, I think when I did this tree in my example, I think I used my number 6 filbert. Should we do that, or should we just keep going? We'll just keep going. Kind of like on the rocks. Remember on the rocks down here where I just like slashed some white, and I didn't worry about what it looked like or that it was in the right place. I just slashed a bunch of white on there and then decided, you know, I'll come back and remove some or add some more or whatever. But right now I'm just going to slash some white on there and not worry about it. That's really what I'm doing here too. Just stick some on there. We have a little bit down here. Again, because I decided my light source was over here, kind of coming this way. So the vast majority of my highlights are going to be on this side of the tree, not really on this side. It doesn't mean that my tree will be completely dark on the back side. I might end up throwing just a little bit, but for the most part, I'm going to keep it on the right side of my tree. Don't worry about where the foliage bits are up in the tree, because we haven't finished that part yet. I just picked up some black, and now I can come back and super light pressure. See that my brush isn't bending? I'm just barely nudging over top of that white to, a lot of it's still wet, so I'm picking some of it up and kind of smearing it. Some of it's dry, so it's just getting painted over, and I'm just kind of letting whatever's going to happen, happen. Because I know that I can come back and I can fix it later. And I can even pick up some more white. I took a bit of white away there that I didn't want to take away. So I just picked up a bit more. Don't stress out over, you know, highlighting a tree or rocks or anything, you guys. I know that somebody, I can't remember who it was. If you're here in chat, let me know. Somebody always asks me a question, and the answer is always wherever you want it to be, and they hate it when I say that, but they always know I'm going to say that. So, you know, it's usually like, well, how do I know where my light source is? Well, your light source is wherever you want it to be. Well, how do I know how my tree moves and where the highlight should be? That's wherever you want them to be. But again, make sure you're standing back and looking, because you don't really know how all of your little lines are moving together when you're standing right in front of it. That's why you see me, I keep looking at the screen, but I'm still painting, because it's kind of the same thing for me. It's the equivalent of standing back, really. I can see things when I look at my computer that I can't really see while I'm standing right here in front of it. And if you have the ability to do that while you paint, do that. Set up maybe just a mirror, or, you know, use the webcam on your computer to kind of reflect what it is that you're doing, so that as you're painting, you can just glance over and see how it looks. That way you don't have to keep walking away or I know some people sit to paint or can't stand at all, and so it's really hard to, you know, get up and walk away from your painting. So try something like that. I think it's super helpful. I feel like that is just way too bright right there, right here. A lot of that was still wet, so I just went over it. I didn't lose it all, but now it's not super bright there anymore. So that's good. So is anyone painting along and having a hard time, or I want to hear about your experience if you're trying to paint along with me right now.
Give them a few seconds to hear you.
I think I'm going to zip you up. We're going to do just a couple on these higher up branches, and then we can start adding the purple to our tree. I'm really liking the way that that tree trunk looks. It's super twisty. I love twisty tree trunks. Just got both colors on my brush, and again, just laying down the white where I feel like I might maybe want some.
Sharon says, so far keeping up pretty good.
Good, Sharon's keeping up. That's awesome. Just doing.
Noel said it's too hard to paint and chat.
It's too hard to paint and chat. I know. Why do you think I can't see chat? For that exact same reason. I just kind of added little pokes here and there. You know, these higher up branches, it's really not such a big deal. Most of this is getting covered up. I might just have a few little specks where you can see some lighter color. But really, it's not going to be even as noticeable once we put the colors on here, because they'll be the same value. So I think just a suggestion that there's some lighter colors up on these higher up branches is all you need. So that's all I did. And all of that black feels pretty dry. It's a little sticky, but I think we'll be okay. So I'm going to go back to my flat brush, my natural bristle brush, and I'm going to get some Dioxazine Purple. You can do this tree in any color you like. You know, you could do it, and somebody said they were going to do it in red, and I think that would be awesome. You could do it in, you know, quinacridone or blue or green. Do it in any color combination you like. Purple, I kind of wanted an analogous color scheme, and so that's why I went with purple. And so let me see if I can grab my color wheel here. So analogous, what that means is if you take colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, that's an analogous combination. So I have like my primary colors that you can really see in the painting are the purple, blue, and green. So if we simplify our color wheel a little bit more, then we have the purple, blue, and green. And that's the color scheme that I wanted. I could have gone the other way and done like purple, blue, and, blue, green, and yellow, and then done a yellow tree, but that didn't feel right to me. I didn't feel like that would stand out or have as much life as the purple, so I didn't go with the yellow. Whoops, wrong way. Am I making you guys sick with all the camera movement today? I'm trying so hard to minimize it, you guys. I apologize. Whoa. There we go. That's better. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is take my brush. It's cleaned off. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab just a little tiny poke of white. See that? Let's put it here with the purple. Kind of mix it. Smash into it. I don't want a very light color, but Dioxazine Purple on its own almost looks black. So I do want to lighten it just enough that we can tell it's purple. So about like that. stab in there, remember to separate your bristles. Now when we're doing this part, again, don't smash it too hard. You just want to lightly tap it, but leave some of this black showing. That's why we put it there. If you're going to go through the effort of covering all of that black, then I think that you probably shouldn't have even done the black in the first place if you're just going to cover it up. So especially at the bottom edge, I left that, I'll zoom you in here. I can't put that brush in my mouth. I don't really want to talk about it, but there was something on the end of my brush the other day. It tasted like cleaner. It was like Windex or something. So I put the end of my brush, of that brush in my mouth, and then I was like, what's that taste? And it got worse and worse. And I looked at the brush and I smelled it, and it smelled like cleaner, like Windex or something. So I almost poisoned myself. Please don't poison yourself. A little bit more white. And my purple. Okay, so we'll do this one here. And again, notice my brush is not bending. There's no bending going on there. Just kind of tapping it. Let some of that black show through still. And there, see, I left some of the black, and at the bottom especially. It's going to be darker on the bottom, and that will help us to kind of, you know, give that indication that it's darker on the bottom. A little more purple. So once I've already put purple onto something, I'm not overlapping it, because then I'll just overwork it, and it'll be impossible to tell, you know, what's supposed to be in the distance, what's supposed to be closer, if they all just kind of blend together. But this way, if, you know, if I don't take this one over top of this one, it's going to look like this one is in front of it, and it's going to help create that depth. And I know that you can't really understand, or you can't really see what I'm talking about right now because it's just the one color, but as we start doing the lighter colors, I think that that will become a little bit more apparent. So see, I didn't overlap that purple that I already put on there. There we go. Now this part's not in this dark, scary corner anymore over here. A little bit of purple on it. Let's do the top bit. Wrong way again. Everybody had so many questions, and now
because they're into it, they're working.
They're into it? Okay, good. I was going to say, I answered everybody's questions, and then everybody left. I got my question answered. I'm out of here. 402. There's 402 people in there? All right, so you guys didn't get your questions answered and then leave. So that's good. All right, some more of that dark, dark purple, just barely so you can tell it's purple and not black. Let's do this one up here at the top. No bending, no mushing. Don't try to cover all of that black. Flip your brush over when your paint wears off, or just go get more paint. Okay, so see how this shape overlaps this shape? So that's what I'm talking about. When I start doing this one, there's no need to take this color and overlap into this shape, because they'll just blend together.
Jana asked, will you be doing any more watercolor?
Jana asked if I'll be doing more watercolor. I would love to. I haven't had, because I've been moving, you know, my studio around and everything lately, I really haven't had a lot of time to do any watercolor lately. You know, I had to miss a video a couple weeks ago because I was so behind, and I've just been getting set up here and getting back on track. But yeah, as soon as I'm all settled and fully back on track, I would love to do some more watercolor. I'm going to zoom you out just a tiny bit, because like I said, you have to stand back once in a while. You can't stand directly in front of your painting the whole time and have a good idea of what it is that you're doing. So we'll just zoom you out there so you can see everything now. And I'm just gonna get a little more white. And I'm not gonna pull more purple in. I'm just gonna mix it into what's in my brush and this little pile that I have right there. Maybe a tiny, tiny bit more. Whoops, that was way too much. Way, way too much. There we go. Okay, now, again, because I have determined where my light source is, that it's kind of on this side moving this way. So my highlights are really going to be mostly kind of along the top and side here. Maybe a little bit toward the front, but not really on the back side of the shapes. So let's see, which one can you see? We'll start with this one right here. So again, just a little touch, no bending. Just about like that. See, I didn't take it down this way. Same thing over here, just at the top, down that side. And that's about it, maybe just a tiny hint. You can go outside of your shapes. You know, like right here, let's say I'm gonna work on this one. So start up here. And maybe I'll bring it down just a little right here on the end. So you can absolutely come outside of your shapes. I think if you try to keep it really confined into that black area that you did the first time, then they start looking kind of puffy or just kind of really solid and really squished. But I want it to look a little bit more wild than that. So every color, I allow it to go outside of my shape a bit. At the top, on the sides, everything.
We have a request from Karen for more glass pours. Wait,
From
paint pours? Do you do
Karen
paint pours?
requested, oh, more paint pour. You know what? It's been like a year since I did any paint pouring. I need to figure out something fun to do with it because, like, I know that watching the pour kind of spread is really cool and it's really exciting, especially the first time you've done it. For me, after I did it, you know, 5 or 6 times, I was like, okay, now what? So I get bored really easy. I think it's just me. But yeah, I need to figure out something fun to do with it because I still have a ton of pouring medium. And so I should use it, but I need to figure out how I want to use it. All right, so see, we're starting to get some lighter areas in there. Now I'm gonna go into my white. I just dunked into it. See that? I got a pretty good amount. I'm gonna come over here, wipe some off, and then tap. And every time I go a lighter color, I end up using less of it. Remember, just like with everything else, the lighter the color goes, the less of it I use. I apply it to very smaller and smaller areas.
Dawn has a question.
Okay, let's hear Dawn's question.
What are your thoughts on using a fan brush instead of a natural bristle?
Go for it.
Any reason that you use natural bristle?
You can use a fan brush if you want to, absolutely. To do a tree of this shape, I don't care for the shape that I get out of a fan brush, but that's, again, everything is personal choice. Everything is personal choice. And if you feel like you'd be more comfortable using a fan brush for this, by all means, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And, you know, a lot of fan brushes are natural bristles. The fan brushes that I have coming are natural. They're the natural white bristle like this. They're not cheap brushes though. These are the kind that fall apart after not very long. But that's not to say that all natural bristle is cheap. Because a lot of oil painting brushes are natural bristle, and a lot of oil painting brushes are quite expensive.
Marion asks, what brush are you using right now?
This is the flat natural bristle brush. And I think I'm probably going to be done with my tree after this color. I might kind of look at it as we go, and maybe I'll come back later and adjust it a little. One thing to know is if you end up doing something too light, in fact, I'll do it because I know it terrifies you guys sometimes. Oh, that was a big, huge glob of white that I really don't want there. Or let's say that you overwork a spot, okay, that maybe you didn't like your pattern there, so you kind of did that and you overworked it, and now you're like, oh, just leave it alone. We can fix it, which is why I had no problem putting a blob and a big old overworked spot there. I mean, it's better in the first place if you just don't overwork, but if you do, you can fix it. I don't like patterns. There we go. Okay, I think we're done. We just have to fix those couple of ugly spots that I made. So I'm going to take my damp paper towel and I'm just going to wipe this off. Again, you could clean it if you want. That's just too much work for me. I'm telling you guys, I'm lazy. I mean busy. Okay, let's fix that blob first. I'm going to come and just grab a tiny bit of purple. I'm not loading up a ton of paint on my brush. See that? I just grabbed a tiny bit of purple and ever so lightly. Ta-da! Now there's no blob. Same thing with our little blended out spot here. Just introduce a bit of that darker color back in. Get a tiny bit of our white again. And now it's not an overworked blob anymore. See, guys, you can fix anything. And it's like I've said to you before, I think that, you know, because I hear all the time about, I'm afraid to try this, I'm afraid to try that. You know, I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up, whatever it is. I think that a huge amount of the fear that we feel as artists comes from not being sure that we can fix something. You know, I think a lot of times we're like, I'll mess that up and I will have no idea how to go about fixing it. So allow yourself to mess up and allow yourself to do things that you don't like and to make mistakes, because that gives you the perfect opportunity to learn how to fix it. You're not going to learn how to fix it unless you make those mistakes. And if you haven't learned how to fix it, then you're always going to be afraid. So make mistakes. Intentionally make mistakes. In fact, I challenge each of you to do what I just did on the tree there. Make a big ugly blob somewhere and then make one overworked spot. Do that. I want you to do that. And then fix them. Because I believe in you. Christopher has a question.
When correcting overworked layers, can you just back up a color, or is it sometimes impossible to correct?
I don't think anything is impossible to correct. You know, everything's going to be a little bit different how you correct it. And it's going to depend on the colors you use, how much you overworked it, how thick your paint is, you know, whatever. There's not like a blanket answer. This is how you always correct that. Because it might not be how you correct something a little bit different. But that's where making those mistakes and taking the time to try and fix them comes into play. That's why it's so important to do that. I'm using my phthalo blue, and you guys always talk about how tidy my palette is. That is not a tidy palette. I just need a little bit. Remember, phthalo blue is so strong. We don't need a huge blob of it here because we're not going to use much of it. In fact, I'm not going to use anywhere near as much as I just put out on my palette. And I'm going to use my number 8 filbert. Yep, it's my ugly, puffy, ratted number 8 filbert that I just love and can't stop using. I wet it in my jar, wiped it on the edge. And let's get a very pale color with the blue. So I'm going to grab, oh, I should probably get some fresh white. I'll just grab this white and move it over here. There we go. I'm going to pull out a good amount of white and a tiny speck of phthalo blue. See how strong that color is? So, so strong. And you know what? I also lied to you guys. I'm probably going to use a little bit of matte medium here in a minute. You don't have to if you don't want to. I feel like some things are easier to do with matte medium than not. All right, let's start sketching in where our river's going to go. I'm just going to use the tip of my filbert. Actually, I don't want to use my filbert. I lied. Sorry if you just loaded up your filbert, and you can still use it if you want to. I'm going to use my bright because I am kind of sketching. I feel like the bright's a little bit easier for sketching. So still a very pale blue color. That's a little bit heavy. There we go. Sketch out where your river is going to go. I'm going to have it come from behind the tree. So just kind of start there. Remember to keep all of your brush strokes horizontal, so you're going to kind of follow the bottom of the canvas. So just like when we did the road last week and I said make sure that your brush strokes follow the bottom edge of the canvas, same thing with your water here. Don't worry about your root. If you accidentally go over your root a little bit, you can come back and fix it later. Kind of sketch it out there a bit. Remember, we have not finished painting the grass, so if your water gets away from you, that's perfectly okay. Just kind of sketching it back and forth like that. And we'll have it come over this way and fall off the edge somewhere in here. I'm not going to worry about that part just yet. It'll be somewhere right there. Let's do the water on the ground. Bring you down just a little bit more. There we go. So from right about where that is, again, very horizontal. Get some choppy edges there. And it's okay if it's too much, if you chop it up too much. I'm going to bring it kind of this way. Make it just a little bit wider in the foreground than it is in the back, because that helps create distance. Remember, if it's very narrow back here and it's just as narrow right here, I think it's going to look a little flat, almost like the ground is tilted rather than flat. So even we have that a bit here. It's a little bit more narrow here and a little bit wider here. Now we can do our little splash down, a little bit of a waterfall type thing. I'm just going to use the edge of my bright, so I'm not using it flat anymore. Decide where I want it. I'm going to put a couple rocks up here. So I'm not going to have it coming all the way across. So we'll say it's there on the flat. Just bring that straight down. You can adjust where it lands if you need to. Maybe I'll have a rock over there. Well, let's whiten this just a little bit. See how thin that is? And we'll have another one kind of right here. What's going on, Vince?
Got somebody giving a shout out from Egypt.
Oh, we have somebody in Egypt in chat? That's awesome.
But, you know, there's people from all over the place. But
I know, I love that you...
I'm sure that's the farthest.
I love that you guys say... I don't know, Tan was in here earlier, and she's in Singapore. I love when you guys say where you're from. I think it's so cool to have all you guys from all over the world in here. Okay, so that's where our water is going to be. And like I said, I'm going to put some rocks here, so that's why there's a split. If you're not sure about that, you don't know where to put rocks, or that just seems too complicated, don't do that. Just make it go all the way across. That's okay. I'm going to keep my, oh, is that Zenip? Yep, Zenip's in Turkey. I'm going to keep the same brush, and I'm just going to pull a little extra phthalo blue out. Just a teeny smear, see that? And
Egypt has a question.
Okay, there's a question.
A seal from Egypt?
A seal from Egypt?
Hope I pronounced the name right. Said I probably missed this, but what else can I use instead of unbleached titanium white for the background?
Just plain white.
There's lots of people catching up, you know.
Yeah, if you don't have the unbleached, like I said, you can just use plain white. That's perfectly fine. Okay, what I'm going to do here is just sketch like I did at the edge. So my brush kind of dried out. Hang on a second. It's just a little bit darker. It's not a ton darker. Can you see in there? Let me see if I can. I'm going to move my camera a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing here without my hand getting in the way. We'll see if that's good. It's hard sometimes to make sure that, you know, that I can see and you can see and we can all see. And all right, so I've got the blue, and oh, that's a little better. Just the tip of the brush, kind of scratch it in there, right at the edge. Again, not worrying about, don't worry about going over the grass. Don't worry about having hard marks in here. You know, that looks sketchy and weird, and that's okay, you guys. Right now, that's fine. We'll just take a tiny bit of this into the part that comes down, the little waterfall part. Just a hint of it. And down into this area as well. I know in the past when we've done like rivers like this, we've spent a ton of time on them, and we're not going to spend a ton of time on this one, I promise. But don't go overboard and start trying to cover everything. Just hints of the color here and there. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to wash off my brush. Dry it a little on my paper towel. Now I'm just going to pick up white. Just white. And again, no blobs still. We are going to use some blobs of white, but we'll wait just a few minutes. And everything else, so kind of in the middle here, zipping into each color. You can take it all the way to the edge or not. Just use that as a little bit of a blend. See how it's starting to just kind of smooth everything together a little. That's what we're looking for here. If I am actually trying to do this without matte medium, because I didn't tell you guys we were going to use it, but if you have matte medium, if you like to use matte medium, this would be a perfect time for it, because it would really help kind of keep the colors open a little bit, help them layer a little bit better, blend together a little. But I am trying not to use it. I think that's good for the bottom for now. Let's go up to the top. Start in the back here. So I'm almost sketching. It's almost like I'm sketching with a pencil. See how it's just kind of wiggling side to side? That's pretty much all I'm doing. Vince, I can't believe how quiet Mr. Moon is today. He's so quiet. He was so noisy whenever I would record at the studio. But he's laying on Olaf's bed right now, so. All right, let's bring that down just a little in there. Just a little streak of white. And we'll go just a little over here. Not too bad. We'll wait until that's dried a little bit more before we do kind of the final pop of white, because especially in the 4 sections of each of these, so like right here where it's closest to us and right here where it's closest to us, I really want to pop that white really, really brightly. But because phthalo blue is so strong and this is still wet, right now it will kind of absorb that blue and it won't be pure white. So I've had people ask me in the past, why is it that my white highlights seem to go away? It's probably because you're putting it on top of a strong color when it's still wet. So just wait until it completely dries. And now we can let's finish the grass. So I am going to use my number 8 filbert now. Put you back up just a little. We'll work on the grass on the top. And I am going to add a couple rocks, I think, in a few other places too, not just in the front of the little river bit, but kind of toward the edges as well. Now, the grass here is going to be a time when you can make adjustments to anything you didn't like, whether it's the shape or the size of the land formation, the base of the tree, a rock, the water, whatever. So I'm going to grab a little bit of black and mix it with my Cadmium Yellow LIGHT. I'm going to go much lighter than that first layer we did. Get a much lighter green. About like that. Now here's something when you are coming in at the ground here. One way that you can make the ground kind of look like a little bit hilly is to leave a little bit of the dark. So let me show you what I mean by that. If you look on my painting here, see how right here I've got these dark bits between the water and the lighter part? That's what helps it look like there's a little bit of kind of mass to the ground, that the ground isn't flat, it's kind of popped up a little bit. So that's what we're going to focus on doing. So I'm going to take this, try not to put my hand on wet paint, and again kind of sketch it all at the edge there and pull it back. Can you see, you can start to see a little bit where I didn't cover all of that first color. But as we go lighter and lighter, it will become more and more obvious. So right there. See how I left that little dark spot? That's going to give our ground some mass as well. And right back there. And again, I left that little bit of dark spot between the ground and the grass. Let's bring a little bit of some bright green grass right here too. Maybe not quite as much here because I feel like it would be nice and dark back here. Maybe our light source isn't getting back there all the way. I'll add a little bit of this color, but our lighter colors I probably won't put back here much at all. All right, let's add that same color onto, yeah, let's go ahead and do it onto the ground. Just do it all at once, even though I'm gonna risk making you dizzy again. Okay, so right back here, again, this is farther away from our light source, so I probably won't make it too terribly light back here. I feel like this water got a little crazy right there, so see, I just paint right over it. Any of that I don't like, just paint right over it. And we'll sketch that back. Now you see why my poor number 8 filbert is so ugly, because I kind of scrub with him. This is another part where some matte medium would be really fun and helpful to use, particularly when we start moving into some of the lighter greens. But it's not required. And on the other side. I'm going to kind of reshape my hill a little bit. Bring that up just a bit higher there, because right here at the back of my river, the ground was kind of curved a little bit, and a river wouldn't really be flowing on a piece of earth that's curved up like that. So I'm going to bring it up a little higher over here just to kind of level it out a little bit. How's it going over there, Vince?
Everybody is plotting right now to tell Elizabeth Moss that she should watch your show. And she's on Instagram.
That's so funny. She is on Instagram. I should go find her and tag her in a picture of me in my Handmaid's Tale costume.
And Elizabeth Moss Official. And Elizabeth is with an S. I was looking at it with a Z. And she's been found. And everybody's going to do that on their own. And maybe Elizabeth Moss will become a Painting with Jane fan.
Oh, that would be so cool, huh? Yeah, I have a Handmaid's Tale costume, bonnet and all. So my mom made the awesome robe. And yeah, I should probably send her a picture of that. Okay, let's go lighter. I'm just going to grab some more yellow mixed in with the color that's already on my brush. Maybe just a tiny poke of water. Let's go pretty light here. See how I like to mix on top of the area that I mixed before. So if you can tell, this is the color that I painted the background with first, the green. This is the color that I just used, and this is the color I just mixed. So when you mix them like that, it kind of helps you compare. So if you are pulling paint over here to mix and it's not looking any lighter than that, you know, you have to keep, you know, going a little bit lighter or darker, whatever way it is that you're going for. Anyway, I don't know if that's helpful to anybody, but I thought maybe it would be.
We have a technical question.
A technical question?
Teresa asks if you are misting your paint because hers dries out so fast, but I think they're not seeing you dip it into the water.
No, yeah, I don't mist my paint. I've had issues with that in the past where, again, guys, sorry, I'm having two conversations at once. I'm leaving some of the darker areas at the bottom as I add this lighter color to help keep that mass. But I am dipping into water once in a while. But no, I don't mist my paint at all. You know, things are starting to dry out. Like my burnt umber from the beginning, it's pretty much dry now. And it's really dry where I live. So, you know, the paint does dry out. You have to make sure that you don't take too much paint. You know, you can always get more. Good paint management skills are important. And I am going to use matte medium because I can't get the ground to look like I want it to without it.
Okay, Lucy has a question about matte medium.
Okay, we have a question from Lucy about matte medium.
What effect does matte medium produce?
I am about to show you.
She doesn't quite understand, so...
Okay, so I'm going to show you. So matte medium, all right, so water thins the binder down, makes the paint very transparent. I don't feel like it helps blend like a wet color on top of a dry color. It just kind of thins it down and makes it smear over top of it more. But matte medium, because it's extra binder, you can actually take a paint that is completely dry and take some wet paint and some matte medium and make it look like the two colors are blended together, even though they're not. And I haven't been able to get that effect with water. So I just took a tiny point of matte medium, whoop, right there, and then just mixed it in with the paint that's on my brush. See how kind of fractured this looks right here? But now, I just feel like it's so much it just looks so much richer than thinning it down with water. I'm going to show you, because this is pretty dry. See that? I'm going to show you how I can make this look blended in with that dry color, which is why I'm not worrying about making sure that I don't have a hard line back there. I'm okay with that hard line because I know I can take care of it with matte medium. Okay, so we're just going to take care of the rest of the riverbank here with some of this lighter color. And then we'll blend in the back there. All right, I still have the paint on my brush. I'm just going to come in and dunk into a little bit of matte medium. See that? That might be a little much. There, just tapped some of it off. So I have very, very little. Now I'm going to come back here. See, I'm just using the very tip of my brush. And again, just kind of that scrubbing. It's not a scrub. I'm not scrubbing. It's more like a scribble, like a very gentle scribble. Tiny poke of matte medium more. And see, it almost looks blended in with that darker color.
Which brush is that?
But it's not blended in. It's just covering it, but it's covering it thinly. This is the number 8 filbert. See? And I feel like that's almost impossible to get without the matte medium. So there I picked up some more paint and just a little bit of extra matte medium, kind of tapped some of it off. Let's do the same thing over here. This side I'm not going to highlight quite as brightly. For sure, right at the edge of the river. Make sure you leave a little bit of that dark at the bottom of a few places for some mass. And a little poke of matte medium again. And just a light scribble. So the very first time I ever used matte medium, because a good friend told me about it, and I thought, that stuff sounds magical. I'm going to try that immediately. I had an old canvas, and I didn't really know what I was going to do with the medium. I just knew I was going to just mess with it and see what it could do. And the canvas was painted black at the bottom, and I was using like a pale pink color for some reason. And I wanted to see how thinly I could get the color to be with the matte medium. So I, just kept spreading the paint thinner and thinner and thinner on this black canvas with the matte medium. And eventually it looked like the paint was blended in with the black paint. And I was immediately hooked. I was like, oh, okay, matte medium is awesome. But I try not to use it on every painting. I've been going through kind of a matte medium dry spell lately, because every time I use it, people always ask, can I do it without matte medium? And like I said, you can do anything you want. I think that matte medium is an excellent tool that makes some things a lot easier, and you can get some looks with it that you really can't get just using water. But if you insist on trying it without matte medium, go for it. You can absolutely do anything you like. All right, let's do the same thing up here. That same color mixture. And a little poke of matte medium. Let's see. Oh, we've been going for a while, huh? We're actually almost done. I know it feels like we're not, but we really are. And I've been talking so much today. Hopefully I've been saying things that are helpful to you. Hopefully you guys have been getting something out of some of my ramblings. Just a little bit of green back there. And we'll just give a hint of it here on this side of the bank. I'm going to wipe some of that off and just grab a little point of matte medium. That's too much. There we go. And we'll blend right here. Perfect. One last bit on the green, then we can do the final pop on the water and we're done. So I just picked up yellow. I'm just going to strategically kind of scribble those into a few spots. Oh, I wanted to add the little rocks. We'll do the rocks super quick. Little matte medium. See how kind of jaggedy that looks? But just a little swipe of matte medium over it smooths it out. So it really does help you get a little bit of a smoother look. Very pro matte medium, if you can't tell. We'll do the bottom part. I'll probably zoom you out while we do the rocks, because you know how to do rocks. Now we just did a bunch of rocks. And the white highlights in the water, because that's going to be really the same thing. A little point of matte medium, that's too much. I keep picking up too much. See that? How far I was able to take that bright yellow back, and it just disappears right on its own. So you guys are conspiring against me in chat.
Yes.
Also, if you need a little bit more information on like how you would use matte medium just in a regular day-to-day basis, if you watch my 30 days of art videos, I challenged myself to only use water to clean my brushes. So I didn't use water at all in my paintings in the 30 days of art. I only used matte medium. And that was a really good challenge for myself. There's definitely times when I like to use it and times that I don't. You know, when I'm doing really fine detail work, particularly like delicate tree branches, I actually don't like to use matte medium there because it doesn't thin the paint down enough. But for blending and even glazing to some extent, it's really nice to use. There we go. All right, let's pop the highlights on the water, add a couple of little rocks, and then we're done. All right, I'm gonna go back to my number 8 bright. I'm just gonna get a little poke of white. See how I've got a little bit of a blob. That's exactly what I want this time. And I'm just gonna kind of smear it on there where I want it to be nice and bright. Now, again, this is what I was talking about, how matte medium can make it look like you're blending into wet paint. So if I get a little tiny poke of matte medium right here where that's dry, I can go like that right over it. And now it looks like it blended in with that dark blue, even though I just put it over top of it. Vince has a question.
CRC in chat.
Oh, CRC in chat has a question.
Only has gloss medium.
Gloss medium. Gloss medium, especially in Liquitex, it dries very fast. So I like to use matte medium a lot of times to help keep the paint wet longer, and gloss medium will not do that. It will make your paint dry faster. So, I mean, as far as getting kind of the blending effect goes, if you can do it quick enough that it doesn't dry, yeah, it'll work for that. And definitely for glazing. But yeah, be aware that it will make your paint dry very quickly. And see, because I'm using the matte medium, I can pretty much take this bright white over the entire area of the water and I don't lose. I just picked up matte medium there. I don't lose all of that darker blue, it just kind of mutes it down a little bit. Let's do some right in here. Did you have another question, Vince? It sounded like you were going to say something.
No.
Oh, okay. We'll just drag a tiny bit of that white back here and down our little waterfall bit. Oh, one last thing. Our waterfall has to have a little bit of spray. So, one sec. I cleaned off my brush, got a little extra water. I'm going to mix up kind of a watery version of the white here. Maybe just a little bit more water. See how it's not flowing, but it's obviously much wetter than it was. And right here at the base, I'm just going to flick with this. There we go. There, our waterfall has a little bit of spray. All right, another question.
Danielle?
Danielle?
She has a deco varnish. Can she use that also like a medium to blend colors?
I have no idea. I've never used that before. The deco, it's a deco varnish?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I know that Deco is a craft paint brand, and I don't know if it would work in that same way with art paints. Try it. And maybe it won't, but maybe it'll do something else that you think is really cool, but you don't know until you try. All right, still using my number 8 bright, getting some black. Let's just kind of plonk down a couple of rocks right here in the front. Maybe we'll do one right here. This is a good thing to do if any part got away from you and you're just like, oh, I don't like that at all. You know, add one right here too. And let's highlight it with a little bit of white. Very insinuated. See, you don't have to like obsess over details. Just say, oh, it's highlighted on the top. So there, that's actually, I think that that's perfectly fine. I don't think I'm going to do anything else to it. I'm going to zoom you out a little bit, and then I'm going to sign it because I'm done. And then I'll show you a wide shot of the whole thing. We can chat for a minute if you like, and then I'll let you guys go. You've been very awesome to hang out with me for like, what is it, almost 2.5 hours. That's great. Thanks, everybody. All right, there we go. What does everybody think? Who finished? Was anybody able to finish it with me? I'm gonna turn this off for a second so that I don't make you sick. All right. So yeah, I would like to hear if anybody was able to finish this with me. And what final questions you have about it. And then I will get a picture of it up on my website and everything for you. Eileen finished. Awesome.
I had to stop at the rocks, Stephanie said.
Stephanie had to stop at the rocks. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I really love my tree trunk. I like my tree trunk a lot. I think that's my favorite part. That's definitely my favorite tree trunk that I painted while working this painting up. All right. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions, then I will let you go. If you are watching this after we're live and you have questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you're with me live now, but later on you think of some questions, leave them in the comments below and I will get back to you. But in the meantime, I want to say thank you, as always, to everyone who came and painted with me today. And maybe I'll see you live next week too. maybe will be recorded. I don't know yet. We'll have to see what I end up deciding we're painting for the week. So until then, I will see you guys. Whoops, I accidentally muted you. I'll see you guys later. So thanks for hanging out with me. Bye, everybody.